very much for that, Abby. So it's Tuesday, it's the 11th of June, it's 2025. This is a reconvened meeting of the local review body. We've got one item today, so no appointment of chair today because I was previously the chair, so I'll take that role. Unfortunately, I'm acting remotely today, but we are quoted. But so just before we go into proper business, so I'll pass over to Tracy Clark to go through the business for today and how we'll do that. But just before we do that, I'll just it's members' remote participation. We'll just agree that right now and approve that. Thank you. Over to you, Tracy.
Thank you, Chair. This meeting was adjourned on the 11th of March, so we're reconvening today, 10th of June. We've got present all on Microsoft Teams, the Chair, Councillor Crothers, Councillor Dryborough, Councillor Lowe and Councillor McFarlane. So not present is Councillor Beretti, Councillor Maureen Johnston and Councillor Howie no longer sits on planning or LRB, so we are quoted, Chair.
Excellent, thanks very much for that. So if you've got nothing else to add in regards to, have you got any words to say, Tracy, as far as the process?
Thanks, Chair. So we're still in the middle of item 4, which was on the agenda from March, and that's Rosebank Cottage, Cairnryan, Stranraer. Refusal of planning permission for change of use of land to form haulage yard, formation of hard standing, erection of 1.8 metre high boundary fence and 2.2 metre high security gates and associated works retrospective. Planning reference 23/2206/FUL. So as a reminder for members, the grounds for refusal, which were on page 107 of your original pack, was 1. The proposed development is contrary to Dumfries and Galloway Council Local Development Plan 2, policies ED2 and ED1B, and National Planning Framework 4, policy 26, and that site for the proposed haulage yard is located in the countryside and is neither within nor adjacent to an existing settlement, and no overriding and compelling site-specific need for a rural location or for this site in particular for this proposed business use has been provided. As such, the proposal would represent sporadic business industrial development in the rural area. And 2, the proposed development is contrary to Dumfries and Galloway Council Local Development Plan 2, policy OP2, and the related supplementary guidance and National Planning Framework 4, policy 29, and that the use of the land as a haulage yard would be visually incompatible within this rural locality. Members, options that you have available today are the same as previous. You can decide that you've got sufficient information before you to determine the review today. Request further information in the form of written representations. This was the reason for the adjournment at the meeting of the local review body on the 11th of March. Members determined that they required further information to enable them to determine the review. This included additional information to be provided by planning staff in relation to sustainable economic growth in the area. Local review body members were also seeking further information from the applicant's agent, including the following: 1. A copy of the viability report previously offered. 2. Further information on when this business was established at this location and or any previous commercial use on this site, as well as any casual use on the site, for example, parking of tractor units. 3. An appraisal of alternative sites considered in line with LDP2 policy and an explanation of why this site was chosen. The formal procedure notice was sent out to the applicant's agent on the 17th of April 2025. The applicant's agent provided a response to this further information request on the 21st of May 2025. All relevant additional pieces of information are now in front of the local review bodies, and this was issued as a supplement pack for members' consideration. So today you can determine that you now have full information to determine the review. You can request further information if you still feel that is required. Resolve to hold a hearing specifying who will be invited to speak and on what matters. Resolve to hold a site visit, accompanied or unaccompanied, and this will not allow a decision to be made today. If the local review body resolves that it has sufficient information and that no further procedure is required, the local review body has the powers to uphold, reverse or vary a determination. The decision notice will include a statement of the terms in which the planning authority has decided the case reviewed. Planning advisor is present at your meeting today in relation to the case. It was confirmed previously and again today that he was not involved in the case prior to the submission of the notice of review, and he was not the case officer or the appointed officer for the application. He is here to provide independent advice as needed on matters of planning policy, law or process. A solicitor is also present, Laura Whitelaw, and she's on Microsoft Teams, and she is present to act independently if the local review body require any specific advice on matters of law. So I'll pass back to the chair first. Councillor McFarlane's got his hand up. I'm not sure if you can see that, Chair.
Thank you. Just picked up on that there, Tracy, and thanks very much for that procedural points that you made there. Councillor McFarlane, Andy.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's on a procedural point. On the supplementary pack, the public pack, this meeting is shown as at 3:30 today, and I'm just wondering how that will stand if the applicants looked at public pack and got 3:30 and perhaps we've concluded business by then. It also says further information following local review body meeting of 3rd of December 2024. So I'm a wee bit confused by that, but I'm just wondering, really it's for Tracy, I think, as in governance, should we actually have to reconvene at 3:30? Not that that's something I'm looking to do particularly.
So as far I noticed that Tracy's mentioned in a part of a preamble that the meeting had been called properly, so I just suppose that's the point that Andy's picking up on in particular, Tracy, and the other point please as well. Thanks, Tracy, over to you.
Sorry, Chair, thanks for that. Because it's a meeting that's already in session, we don't actually publicise the meeting in the diary. It's just shown as the 11th of March is already in session. So that would cover us in regards to any calendar conflict. But the meeting is being live streamed and it's available online for any member of the public that wishes to watch it. Robert's also wanting to come in, Chair, on notifying the applicant and the agent with regards to some information.
Thank you. Just come in, Robert, please. Thanks,
thanks, Chair. It's standard practice for staff to the local review body support staff to send communication to applicants' agents before the meeting. So I'm not really able to share it with you just now, but I'm looking at a letter to Stephen Gibson, who's the agent here, dated the 2nd of June, and it's informing him that the local review body will meet today on Tuesday the 10th of June 2025, and the meeting will start at 3 p.m. and this will be the sole item in the agenda. And that letter also gives them details of how to take part using DGC Live and so on and so forth, and also directed them to the documents. So I'm quite satisfied the applicant and the applicant's agent have been made aware of this meeting at the right time.
Thanks very much for that, Robert. It gives us a degree of confidence. Just before I come back to Councillor McFarlane, Tracy, is there a typo or something? Maybe it's referring to the December meeting rather than the month of March, I think. Maybe Andrew's picking up on there. You can maybe clarify that, Andy, just to be sure then Tracy can find that and have a look just to see if it's the typo and does it matter? Andy?
No problem, Chair. It's on page 4. It says further information following local review body meeting of 3rd of December 2024. Next on to say it was noted at a meeting on 11th of March 2025.
Apologies. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor McFarlane, for noticing that. Yeah, I think it's been a previous document that's been copy and pasted. So yeah, that should refer to the 11th of March at the top of the meeting. Apologies for that typo.
You okay with that? So we'll see that as being an amendment. Councillor McFarlane, you okay with that?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for picking up on that. I did notice the 11th of March. I did notice it was referring to the 3rd of December. So, members, I think then before I ask Robert to do a wee bit of a pre-ramble in regards to any comments that he's got, I just wondered, we can make the decision now if you want in regards to whether we've got enough information or we're happy enough to just listen to hear what Robert's got to say first, or should we just make that decision whether we've got enough information at this moment in time or not to carry on? Councillor McFarlane?
Yeah, happy to listen to what Robert's got to say, thanks.
Thank you. Right, Robert, over to you, then we'll make that decision.
Thanks, Chair. I don't want to reiterate what the clerk said in relation to process, but now you have in the supplementary pack, you hopefully have the information in front of you that you were looking for at the meeting of the 11th of March. So there's some information from myself, mainly referring to LDP2 allocations and so on and so forth, and also looking at MPF4 because the Stranraer waterfront is obviously a significant part of that. So there are a broad range of considerations there, mainly relating to the development plan. You've then got the applicant's submission of a later date, so you now have the additional information that is sought. Hopefully that's satisfactory. Obviously, as part of the review of the case, you've got to consider that together with the previous information and make a decision as a whole. The only other thing I would say, apart from going through that additional information and considering it, would be I can go through the pictures again of the site, and these would be the same ones that I showed at the meeting of the 11th of March. So happy to be guided by you, Chair.
I'll just open it. Thanks, Rob. I'll just open up to members first. Any members got any view in regards to Robert's comments? Do you want to go through the pictures again? Councillor Driver, plus Councillor McFarlane. Councillor Driver first.
Thanks, yeah, no, I'm quite happy because the pictures are still in the report that we've got as well, and I can remember them really well. So I'm happy to go into session. Has the chair frozen?
I think he has, Councillor Driver. We'll just, I'll give him a couple of minutes if he's okay with that. I think he's just trying to rejoin. I've just spoken to him and he is trying to reconnect. He's just asked for a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Thanks very much for that. Apologies for that. Just a slight technical glitch there with my phone. It's overheated, but it's back online again now. So members, just trying. I think Councillor Driver, you came in and thought, I think we had enough with the photographs. That was the last point where I came out, and it was in Councillor McFarlane was about to come in, but I lost contact at that point. So I wonder if we come back to yourself, Councillor McFarlane, and just what you were going to say then. I never heard it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Chair. I was just about to agree with Councillor Driver. Thanks.
Thanks. So therefore that's fine. And so feel we've got enough information to move on and make a decision today. We've heard from Robert. We've had the process outlined for us from Tracy. So members, we're in session if that's the case. So I'll open up to members to see if we've got any particular views. Councillor Driver, Archie.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, before I sort of go on to my view, I just want to go to page 38 of the report, and it says representation support nil, objections nil. But then when you go to page 31, there is a letter of support from Councillor Scobie. So I'm just wondering why that hasn't been put in there before I make any decisions.
Okay, that sounds quite procedural actually. And, Tracy.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, as part of the notes that I read out in the March meeting, one of the main issues for the local review body to consider was that the applicant's agent had submitted elite information which was not in front of the appointed officer when the decision was taken on the 22nd of October 2024. This information comprising a written representation from Councillor Willie Scobie in support of the application received on the 6th of January 2025 and a supporting statement from the applicant also received on the 6th of January 2025. These were in your papers on pages 31 and 33 of the pack from March, and section 43 of the Town and Country Planning Scotland Act 1997 as amended provides that in a review under section 43A8, a party to the proceedings is not to raise any matters which were not before the appointed person at the time the determination of the review was made, unless that party can demonstrate A, that the matter could not have been raised before that time, or B, that it has not been raised before that time was a consequence of exceptional circumstances, and on that basis members were asked if they were satisfied that this late information should be taken into account. Apologies if I should have went over that again at the start of this meeting. I'm not sure if Robert wants to add anything further to that.
I think that summarises it exactly.
Oh, thanks very much for that. Good explanation. Councillor Driver, are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine now that I've heard that, and with that, taking everything into consideration with the extra supplementary packs that we had and things like that, I reckon we should go with the recommendation of the officer's report.
Okay, thanks very much for that. I suppose I'll just wait to see if anybody else is coming in. I was of a different view, which was I felt that it talks about the potential loss here of 18 jobs, the close links between the port at Cairnryan and the actual business functioning in itself, and no sites in the immediate vicinity between Cairnryan and there's none at Cairnryan at all. That's identified. The closest is Stranraer, which is offline from the 77, 75. It moves away from there. I thought that it should be approved, but under obviously taking an exception to policy. I'm not saying that the decision completely was wrong in the first place, but I feel that with the support information we've had supplied to us, that further information we picked up on IP policy 29 MPF for the truth as well, in particular, felt there is enough justification for us to make an exception to policy because of what's been outlined. But I'll leave but that's my thoughts. I felt this could be supported, but Councillor McFarlane.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If I recall, and I've not got the map in front of me here, it's within yards of the 30 mile per hour zone, which says that it's in a built-up area. You know, when we saw those photos, there was a 30 mile an hour sign sort of within shot, as I remember. And to me, that sort of the fact that it was described as rural seemed a little bit stretching it. similar to you, there's an opportunity here for job losses in an area where we're really struggling for employment in any case. And I think that, similar to you, that we may make an exception to policy on this occasion.
Thanks so much for that. So just before I bring Kim in, Kim, so Tracy, you made some comments in regards to Councillor Lowe, if I remember correctly, at the beginning. Just can you remind me, am I correct in saying that? Because I noticed Kim's put her hand up, I think. Councillor Lowe, that is.
No, Chair. Councillor Lowe was present at the last meeting. It was Councillor Howie, sorry, no longer sits on planning or LRB, but Councillor Lowe's fine to participate. Thanks.
Oh, okay, I picked that up. Thanks, Councillor Lowe. Kim, so over to you.
I'm in agreement with the Chair and with Councillor McFarlane, given the location that it's kind of on the border between the urban and the rural, but given the jobs and the service that provides, that we go with exception to policy.
Robert, if I did say your hands up, could you just summarise in policy terms what you've heard from, I suppose, myself and the other two members in favour of, and come back to yourself actually after that. Robert?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I mean, just looking at the delegated report and the appointed officer's decision, just trying to get my bearings here, trying to navigate it. So you've got the decision letter on pages 105 to 109 of your papers. Now, I'm just navigating to that just now to try and summarise the reasons for refusal. So the appointed officer's decision is that this development is contrary to Local Development Plan 2 policies ED2 and ED1 Part B, and also National Planning Framework 4 Policy 26. So what you've described is, for the reasons you've set out, that you feel that it should be supported as an exception to that policy. Technically it's located in the countryside, but you're aware of the proximity to the built-up area of Cairnryan, and that's shown quite well in the location plan on page 97 and also in the photographic presentation that there was in March. You feel there is a compelling site-specific need for a rural location in this business, given it's a haulier yard. I mean, that's coming through quite clearly, and therefore you don't think the proposal would represent sporadic industrial or business development in a rural area. The other thing, the second reason for refusal by the appointed officer, was the proposed development is contrary to LDP2 Plan Policy OP2 and the related supplementary guidance excuse me, and National Planning Framework 4 Policy 29, and they took that decision on the basis that the use of the land as a haulage yard would be visually incompatible with its rural locality. I think the kind of view I'm getting with that, what I'm hearing from the majority of LRB members, is that you don't think it actually is visually incompatible with its rural location in this particular instance. So on that basis you would seem to be taking a departure from the development plan. The only other consideration, if you're overturning the appointed officer's decision, would be to think about whether or not you would want conditions and what those would be. And again, I'm quite happy to provide guidance, if you like, in that regard, if that's the route you're wanting to go down, Chair.
Thanks so much for that, Robert. That's executed. Good. So, actually, I'll come back to you first. So, I don't know if you're convinced, just in regards to your thoughts, are you minded with ourselves, or and after yourself, I'll come to Councillor McFarlane. But Archie.
Well, I'm not convinced it's, but however, if Robert is looking for conditions, there is a couple of conditions that Transport Scotland had asked to be put in place, but I'm not going to argue the toss, basically.
Thanks for that, Archie. Thanks very much. So we'll come back to that when it comes to conditions. But Councillor McFarlane, Andy?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm looking at the proposed site planting plan, whereby road verge with grass and wildflowers and then ivy, etc., and screening. I mean, it sounds as though if that's already agreed as part of it, or I'm not sure. It says proposed, so I'm sure it's not part of the conditions. But I think if we had some fencing and some planting, then it would obviously soften it and make it blend a little bit better. So that would be my proposal. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks very much for that, Andy. So, Robert, if you could just go over what you've picked up there from members. It looks like we're going to approve it. And Tracy, if you could just then confirm the decision to the best you can, I've got short notice, and then we'll finish up the meeting. Thank you, Robert.
Thanks, Chair. Referring to Councillor McFarlane's point about Transport Scotland, or was it, sorry, Councillor Dryborough's point, it was actually, apologies. There's two Transport Scotland consultation responses in your papers, one of the 12th of February 2024 and one of the 14th of June 2024, which is on pages 57 to 58. And I noticed that there was a condition there on page 58 of the papers, and also a reason. Now, Transport Scotland, with it being a trunk road, are the roads authority, so I would certainly recommend that you followed that condition, that they recommend, if you're minded to overturn the appointed officer's decision and grant permission. Listening to Councillor McFarlane's comments in terms of a landscaping plan, because it's retrospective, I would recommend that the condition would be such that it would be looking for a landscaping plan, say within 3 months of the date of the decision, to be agreed in writing with the appointed officer under delegated powers, and thereafter implemented in the first planting season. And you could probably, with the right kind of landscaping plan, you could probably get something quite effective, and it would help screen the development, it would help provide some benefit at least to ecology and wildlife and so on and so forth. So thinking of something maybe with indigenous species, that could certainly be put in the decision. The only other one I was wondering, Chair, is if you would want, bearing in mind that your decision is based on the specific characteristics of the business as a hauliers, would you want a condition saying that the premises shall be only used as a hauliers yard and for no other purpose in terms of Class 6 of the Town and Country Planning Use Classes Order 1997 for the lifetime of the development? Now, the reason for that is because, like I say, the characteristics are considered to be fairly unique as a hauliers at this location, and there's a clear need on that basis. But if you put it generally as Class 6, there's a whole range of other businesses that fall within that use class that could make use of the site. So would you want, if you like, the applicant to have that opportunity? Would you want to keep it restricted to a haulage yard or not? Would you be comfortable if it ended up being used for a different purpose under Class 6? It's just really a question in terms of that.
Thanks very much for that. So I'll bring in Councillor McFarlane. I think it's got to be an interesting point you brought up here, Robert. Andy?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I think what Robert highlights there is a very good point. I mean, one of the bases for supporting this would be the fact that it is a haulage business and that it is for the proximity to Cairnmine, etc. And we really wouldn't want it developing it, or certainly my view is that we wouldn't want it to develop into something else. So I'd be happy to put that sort of condition on if that was helpful. Thanks.
Thanks so much for that. Just so I've got to understand, so it's Class 6 business use, that could allow him to store containers and all that type of stuff, Robert. I think that's correct, isn't it?
Class 6 is storage and distribution, so it covers things like warehouses, haulage depots, obviously, things of that nature. So things that are fairly passive, but fall within that kind of use class as well. The other thing as well is, in terms of Class 6, there is a permitted change of use, I think, to other things within a similar use class. But basically it means that you're holding them to the kind of definition that's been assessed on as a hauliers yard. And they could apply to change that condition if they wanted to in due course, if there was an alternative. So it's not ruling it out completely, it's just slightly restricting the freedom they would otherwise have.
I am happy enough with that. So it gives them really exactly what they've applied for, but either a section 42 or a further application if something else was requested is what I'm hearing. There is still a sense to change it if required. So no, I'm happy with that, and it sounds like Andy is too. If anybody else isn't happy with that particular condition, I will ask Tracy, I'm going to come back to you. Just outline our decision, please.
Thanks, Chair. Just to go back to the point that was raised earlier about the additional information that was submitted late, I haven't heard any other member views on whether or not to accept that, so I'm taking it members are not agreeing that there was exceptional circumstances around the late support and representations, and as they weren't in front of the appointed officer, members are not taking that information into account. If I could perhaps just have that confirmed, and then I'll move on to the decision if members are happy with that.
No, I thought it was interesting, but I did feel very strongly at a personal level that this would be an exception to policy rather than that being a justification, and it would be aligned to policy. But I'll just give members a chance to come in if they wish, and if they don't, I'll take it that they're in agreement at the same. Tracy, that's nobody's comments. We take that as being as said.
Okay, thanks, Chair. So what I'm hearing is members would like to reverse the decision of the appointed officer and approve the application as an exception to policy. So that is that although the proposed development is contrary to Dumfries and Galloway Council Local Development Plan 2 policies ED2 and ED1B and National Planning Framework 4 policy 26, the members are of the opinion that the proximity to Cairn Ryan gives a compelling site-specific need for this business at this location, and it would not represent sporadic business and industrial development within the rural area. And although the proposed development is contrary to LDP2 policy OP2, that the use of the land as a haulage yard would not be visually incompatible within this location. And members have also asked to attach conditions around Transport Scotland and restricting the use of the yard, as per Robert's comments earlier. And the landscaping. And the landscaping. Apologies.
Members, I think that's us. That's our decision. Apologies again for moments, unless I'm just watching the body language for Tracy, looking to Robert. Robert, are you content with that as well? Just double check with Laura too, just to be sure.
Quite happy with that summary, Chair.
Thanks. Laura, just before I finish the meeting, give you a chance.
Quite happy that the minuted decision reflects the debate today, Chair.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Thanks very much. Members, that's it. Thanks very much, everyone. Thanks for members. Thanks to everybody being patient with my current circumstances today, and thanks very much to the staff who are present in the room for taking that forward today with all your help. See you at the next meeting, members.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you, Chair.
Tracy.